Hello everybody, it's Silver. This is Oblivion Remastered. So this was just kind of shadow dropped like randomly after several leaks, basically made it the least well-kept secret in gaming for a while, and then suddenly there it was. Let me go ahead and get something really simple out of the way first. This is still Oblivion. If you liked Oblivion, then you'll probably like this. If you didn't like Oblivion, then you probably won't like this. It has some tweaks, it has some changes, but it is still, under the hood, the same game that came out in 2006. So do be aware of that. So the first thing to talk about is how it looks, because, well, it's had a massive upgrade in terms of its appearance, although the upgrade has also lost some certain things in translation. Visually, it looks absolutely fantastic for the most part. It is a very, very pretty game now. It still has kept, for the most part, the sort of lighter dark fantasy Elder Scrolls-ish look, so it still looks recognizably like an Elder Scrolls game, but it does have extremely high quality textures all over the place now, so everything is super pretty. You'll notice that a lot of equipment and stuff has these new textures that sort of blend like the Skyrim look of things with the Oblivion look of things. So things are kind of in this in-between state where they look familiar to people that have played either game. The world itself is also very good looking with those classic rolling green hills that Oblivion is known for, and its forests everywhere. And of course you've also got the realm of Oblivion itself, the Deadlands, in this case being this charred lava hellscape, and it looks recognizably the same as it did in the original, but you can tell where there have been some significant improvements in terms of stuff like texture quality and all that stuff to really heavily realize the new sort of visual version of this area. And you'll notice that the atmosphere has also been really well kept in a lot of places. Like one of my personal favorite bits of atmosphere in the original Oblivion are the Aelia ruins. That creepy underground undead-filled ruin atmosphere is just really cool to crawl through. And this preserves that very well. It has a sort of new version of that atmosphere because there's now some ambient sound effects and stuff that play that are really creepy while you're exploring around these old dusty catacombs and things, and it looks really good. Another really big improvement are things like lighting and particle effects. You'll notice that there are lots of new particle effects for things like spells. Magic has a really nice variety of new particle effects, including stuff like impact effects, like how ice spells will leave like a coating of ice wherever they land and stuff like that. It all looks quite nice. And also a lot of the lighting for the spells you cast on yourself have been altered, like the fact that restore health spells are now like a golden color. I really like the dynamic lights cast by magic now. They look really good. The way that, you know, a fireball going down a dark corridor lights up the corridor as it goes through it, or the way that spells reflect off of metallic and glass surfaces in the environment when you cast them. Stuff like that just looks extra nice. Sound has also been changed a little bit. The one thing that I would say they didn't need to change at all would be the music, and they haven't really done much to the music. It's still really good. That classic Oblivion soundtrack, it's still intact. But in terms of in-game sound, they have changed some stuff. You'll notice lots of new environmental sound effects, lots of new sound effects for things like spell casting and weapon impacts and stuff like that. All those incidental sounds have changed. And there's a whole bunch of new ambient sounds for adding atmosphere and things, like I mentioned earlier. Also, there's been some changes to the way that sounds actually play. Like, for instance, they have reverb and echo and stuff now if voices or sound effects are being played in an echoey environment. They've also obviously tried to keep the presentation of the game very similar. The on-screen HUD is a little bit Skyrim-y now. It doesn't use that cluster of 3 stacked gauges on the left side of the screen like it used to be. Now it's this sort of Skyrim-esque 3 different gauge system that all drain towards the middle of the screen. But all of your various menus, your inventory, your magic menu, your journal, and your map, all those things, they all just look like mostly updated versions of what they already were. They're not drastically altered. Oblivion had this sort of tan parchment journal aesthetic to its menus, and this keeps that. It looks a little bit different, but it's still recognizably the same thing. So all of your menus are going to be very familiar, although the way that some sorting and separation is done in menus like the inventory have been changed a bit as well. So it's Oblivion so far. It's Oblivion, but very shiny. So what all has changed in actual gameplay, stuff that's not presentation, stuff that's actually mechanical? Well, there's a lot to go through, and I'll only go through a little bit of it, but the first major change that you'll notice is that leveling has been changed. How you level up is completely different now. In the original Oblivion, only your major skills really contributed to your overall character level, and when you did level up, your attributes would be increased based on the skills that you used to get that level, basically. So if you used a bunch of magic skills, then your intelligence and willpower would increase, or if you bonked people in the head with sticks a lot, then your strength would increase, stuff like that. Now, however, both the major and minor skills contribute to your level, although the major skills contribute more, so leveling those will level you up faster. And now when you level up, you still have to sleep in order to level up, but you get to choose what your attribute increases actually are. You get 12 points, and you can spend those 12 points increasing your attributes as you wish. You can select up to 3 attributes per level to increase, and increase them up to 5 points maximum. So basically, you now have a lot more control over your character's attributes. Also, now when you're leveling all those skills, the magnitude of your actions matters a lot more now. In the original Oblivion, if you wanted to say level destruction, it was based around how many destruction spells you cast, not how much those spells cost. But now, the cost is factored in, and this is the case for pretty much all skills. So your mercantile skill raises more if you're trading stuff that costs a lot of money. Your magic skills level up faster if you're casting spells that are expensive, stuff like that. Also, there's a sprint now, which is kind of a big deal because it very much changes how you get around the world. So yeah, you can sprint now. It does take stamina to sprint, but the more you level your athletics, the less stamina it takes. And also, you level your athletics faster while sprinting. In the original game, you also get these perks by leveling skills. Every 25 points in a skill, 25, 50, 75, and 100, you gain a perk related to that skill. A lot of these have been changed now. The magic ones are pretty much the same because they relate to being able to cast higher level spells, so that's still the case in the game. But a lot of the other ones have been changed. Like, for instance, your athletics ones are mostly based around improving your sprint. The blade perks now give you different effects on your power attacks, like the ability to cause a weakness to normal weapons to enemies, or the ability to cause a bleed. Master Alchemy gives you the ability to have 10 effects per potion, which is ridiculous. Hand-to-hand perks let you drain an enemy's stamina with your attacks, as well as their health, and all sorts of stuff like that. So there's a bunch of changes, but that's just sort of a good smattering of how it all works now. One of my personal favorite changes is combat. Combat feels different now. In the original Oblivion, you just had like 2 swings that you sort of repeated infinitely, and it was fine, but it wasn't the best. It was sort of floaty. And now every weapon type has its own specific combo that's unique to it and is animated very well. So you no longer have the infinite swinging thing that you did in Oblivion, in the original Oblivion. Instead, you've got, like, say the longsword has a 3-hit combo where the last hit causes you a delay before you can start a new combo, so you can't just sit there and swing over and over again. Enemies actually have proper hit reactions now. Depending on where on their body you hit them, they'll react to being hit, which is nice. They added a clairvoyance spell from Skyrim. That's another one. It's actually pretty useful in this game for a reason I'll get to in a minute, but yeah, they added that spell. Bows are more powerful now in-game, and also the speed, the projectile speed of arrows has gone way up. The way that the player movement has also been changed. You don't do things like slide down hills if you try to stand still, for instance. You also slow down when you're moving up a steep incline. And in fact, you also have buoyancy now too, so when you're in water, there's actually some resistance to you going underwater. And then we get to the loads and loads of smaller, more incidental changes that just sort of add stuff to the game or overall try to fix bugs and things like that. Like, for instance, the Bloodworm Helm and the Necromancer's Amulet that you get for the Mages Guild questline. Originally, it disappears when you complete it and become Archmage. However, in this game, it's actually put in your nightstand so you can still access both of those artifacts. Originally, you had to download the unofficial Oblivion patch in order to get that change. The character creator has a much wider variety of options for all character types as well, and now you don't have like gender-based abilities, and instead they're based on your origin, like where specifically your character is from. I noticed that not only do alchemy ingredients have a little animation that plays, a little bouncy animation that plays when you harvest stuff, but now also lots and lots of the smaller ingredients have larger hitboxes to make them less annoying to harvest. I should also mention that this version of the game does include all of the original DLC for Oblivion, so stuff like Knights of the Nine, Shivering Isles, and all of the more incidental downloadable stuff like Frostcrag Spire and Deepscorn Hollow and all that stuff is still here. There's been some new voice acting added into a lot of the characters that you'll hear. Some of the voice stuff are just lines that existed in Oblivion but were extremely rare for one reason or another. Those are now more common. But also, they're just entirely new lines with new voice actors. And a lot of the voice actors they got are voice actors that Bethesda has used before. So if you've played like Skyrim or Starfield or anything like that, then you'll recognize a lot of them. There have also been some under-the-hood calculation changes based on things like how the maximum health of your character is calculated or how your magic regeneration is calculated. That sort of thing has been sort of rebalanced, and you'll also find some rebalances to various different pieces of equipment and enemy types in terms of their health and damage values and things. There's also been tons of glitch fixes and quest bugs and things that have been shored up, like the classic scroll dupe glitch is no longer in the game, and also paintbrushes have gravity. You'll also find that tons of items, enchanted artifacts and things that had some bugs are now fixed. Like there were lots of artifacts that had something wrong with their enchantments, like they wouldn't apply correctly or they applied for 0 seconds or they just didn't work or something like that. A lot of those have also been found and fixed. The same goes for lots of quest problems. There were several quests in the original Oblivion that, if you tried to do them in a certain order, would break each other, or if you had them active at the same time, would cause various conflicts, and those are now not a problem. And you'll also notice lots of changes that show that this was not a lazy remaster, things that take extra effort that they didn't have to put in, but they did, and it shows a certain amount of passion for the project, like the fact that if you look at all of the big textures for the town doors, the big town gates, they're not symmetrical. The two sides of the door are subtly different from each other and have differences in rust patterning and stuff like that, and they could have easily just mirrored the texture, right? Just made one texture and mirrored it to the other side, but they didn't do that. There have also been some changes to just enhance the atmosphere a little bit, like the fact that if you wait a certain amount of time while you're inside of an inn, the food on the tables will repopulate, as if a server has come out and put new food down. A little change, I'm sure you'll agree, but a welcome one in terms of just making the world feel that little bit more authentic. However, as you would probably expect from a remaster of Oblivion, it has also introduced some new bugs. There are now some bugs that weren't in the original that are actually here. I haven't encountered any major ones myself, but they do exist. I've also encountered some bugs that were from the original that were just not fixed yet, like, for instance, enemies spawning underground and just attacking you through rocks and stuff like that, or you yourself spawning underground when you get out of an Oblivion gate. These are bugs that were in the original. So what do I think of it now that I've played a good 30 hours of it so far? Well, I think it is a good return to form because, for one, I'll admit that I really loved Oblivion back in the day. When I think of 2006, 2007 gaming, Oblivion comes to mind every single time. I'm also a huge, massive fan of the Shivering Isles. It is, in my opinion, one of the best DLCs that's ever been made for a game. So clearly, I am kind of the target audience, right? I am a person that remembers the original Oblivion, played it a bunch back in the day, and am poised to accept the new one when they come out with it, so here it is. So obviously, I'm aware that basically I've been marketed to by this remaster. This is for me. However, I also don't feel that you have to have played Oblivion before in order to get anything out of this remaster. I think you will enjoy the game more if you remember it in its old state and are now playing this shored up extra shiny version. There's definitely something about that process. But at the same time, Oblivion is still a good RPG, and if you haven't played it, then now is a really good chance. This is definitely going to be the definitive version. Now, I did mention some things lost in translation and stuff, and one of the big ones really is color. This game is a lot less colorful than the original Oblivion. The original Oblivion had super saturated, bright greens and stuff everywhere. Everything was super green and bright and bloomy. And this game, although it looks nice that it's not so bloomy, it is less colorful. It's more desaturated. A lot of the color has gone into the Shivering Isles, which is an extremely colorful area. But even though I do think some of the screenshots of this game floating around present it badly, they show how desaturated it is and make it look a lot worse than it actually is. There's still color in this game. There's plenty of it. There's just less of it than in the original. But there's also, in my view, one big missed opportunity with this remaster, and that's the dungeon design. Oblivion's dungeons have never been that great, and they're not any better here. They haven't been changed. And I think really there was an opportunity to do just that, and the fact that they didn't at all is a little bit upsetting because of how much better they could have made it. Oblivion's dungeons often have the problem of you have to walk out the dungeon once you get to the end because there's no quick way out. This is something that you'll miss from Skyrim. In Skyrim, every dungeon has a quick way out once you reach the end. It has some sort of way that loops back around and gets you out quickly. Oblivion's dungeons only very rarely do that, and most of them do not do that, and you just gotta walk yourself out the long way. This is what I mentioned when I mentioned that the clairvoyant spell was useful in this game. This is why. Some of these dungeons can get really maze-like, and having the clairvoyant spell to show you the exact way to the exit door is actually a really useful new feature. But I suppose this also kind of butts into the concept of how much were they allowed to change, because it's still Oblivion. What all were they allowed to actually do to it? Were they maybe not even allowed to touch the base content of the game in any major way, only bug fixes and mechanical changes and stuff? So it's kind of hard to say, whether they were actually even going to be able to do things like completely change the dungeon designs to make them more interesting. But I think, personally, this is a solid release, and if you're a fan of Oblivion, then you do yourself a favor to actually play this, because it is Oblivion with a fresh coat of paint and some new, interesting mechanical ideas and things that help to make it feel a bit more modern. And I think it does a good job of being that in a way that doesn't damage the original experience. It still plays and feels like Oblivion. But also, if you are looking for a new open-world RPG to play, then this happens to be a really good one. Yeah, it's got its shortcomings, it's got its problems for sure, but it is still quite a good open-world RPG. There's a reason Oblivion is such a beloved game, and this doesn't do anything to change that. So I'd say if you're at all interested, then you should probably just go ahead and give it a shot. It's also on Game Pass, which makes it a little bit easier to just try out if you're not looking to actually purchase it right now. So I'll put the link to the Steam store page in the description below this video so that you can go and look at it yourselves. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.